In my village, there was one rule no one dared to break. The night it was broken, the drums stopped beating. Long ago, our ancestors settled beside a sacred forest, deep in the heart of Africa. The earth there was a deep, fiery red, and the roads were just paths carved into it by generations of feet. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the village would come alive with the soft glow of cooking fires. Families would gather, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, the air filled with the smell of roasting yams and the low hum of conversation. Under the vast, moonlit sky, the elders would sit, their voices weaving tales of heroes and spirits, their words carrying the weight of centuries. They taught us that we lived alongside the spirits of the forest. They weren't enemies to be feared, but silent watchers, guardians of an ancient balance. They walked among us, unseen but always felt, like a cool breeze on a hot day. Our village was their home as much as it was ours, and this understanding was the foundation of our existence. We learned to listen to the whispers of the wind, to read the signs in the rustling leaves, and to respect the silent, invisible world that thrived just beyond our sight. This delicate harmony was maintained by one sacred, unbreakable rule. A warning passed down from the very first elder to the youngest child. No one, absolutely no one, was to enter the forest after sunset. It didn't matter what your reason was. Not for food, no matter how empty your belly. Not for riches, no matter how desperate your need. And not even for love, no matter how strong the pull on your heart. The reason was simple, yet profound. The spirits, our silent neighbors, needed their rest at night. The forest was their sanctuary, and the darkness was their time for peace. Our village drums, the heartbeat of our community, served a dual purpose. They celebrated our joys, mourned our losses, and most importantly, they acted as a warning system. As long as the drums beat their steady rhythmic pulse, the village was safe. But if a foolish soul dared to cross the threshold into the forest at night, the drumming would cease, a chilling silence falling over the land, signaling that the boundary had been broken. The stories were all the same. Anyone who defied the warning and entered the forest after dark never returned the same. They always came back changed, a part of them left behind in the shadowy depths. In our village lived a young man named Kale. He wasn't a chief's son or a great warrior. He was ordinary, known for his quiet strength and the heavy responsibility he carried on his young shoulders. His father had passed into the spirit world seasons ago, leaving Kale to care for his ailing mother and two younger sisters. He was poor, but his spirit was rich with bravery and a fierce, protective love for his family. He worked tirelessly, his hands calloused from tilling the unforgiving soil, his back aching from sunup to sundown. But that year, the rains had been shy, and the harvest was thin. The grain stores dwindled until they were empty. The hunger in his home became a living thing, a constant, gnawing presence. He watched his little sisters grow weak, their laughter fading into quiet whimpers. He saw the light in his mother's eyes dim with worry. That night, the gnawing in their bellies was louder than any story, any warning, any tradition. The desperate cries of his family were louder than the fear that had been ingrained in him since birth. He looked at their faces, hollowed by hunger, and made a choice. He waited until the village was asleep, until the last fire had dwindled to embers. The moon, usually a silver guide in the night sky, was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, casting the world into an almost absolute darkness. He crept to the edge of the village, the familiar path to the forest now looking like a gaping mouth, ready to swallow him whole. The air was unnaturally still. The usual symphony of the night, the chirping crickets, the croaking frogs, the distant call of a night bird, was gone. There was only a profound, heavy silence. He stood there, his heart pounding against his ribs, every instinct screaming at him to turn back. And then he noticed it. The drums, they were silent. The steady, comforting heartbeat of his village had stopped. That was the first sign, the first cold dread that coiled in his stomach, telling him that something was terribly, terribly wrong. The spirits already knew. He took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. The moment he crossed the threshold, the forest seemed to change. It was no longer the familiar place where he gathered wood and herbs during the day. It was alive and it was watching him. He couldn't hear it with his ears, but he felt it in his soul. Whispers slithered through the air, seeming to come from all directions and none at all. Words without mouths, thoughts that weren't his own. He'd look at a tree, and in the corner of his eye, its branches would seem to twist and move, like long skeletal fingers reaching for him. But when he turned to look directly, it was just a tree, motionless and silent. He quickened his pace, trying to find the rare lumina mushrooms that glowed in the dark, his only hope for something to sell at the morning market. He heard footsteps behind him, the soft crunch of leaves. He'd whip around, his spear ready, but there was never anyone there. Just the suffocating darkness and the silent, imposing trees. He wasn't being chased. He was being followed. The spirits didn't rush. They had all the time in the world. They were patient, curious observers of his trespass. The terror was not in a sudden attack, but in the slow, creeping realization that he was utterly, completely alone, yet surrounded by unseen things. He finally found a small patch of the glowing mushrooms near the base of an ancient baobab tree. His hands trembled as he gathered them, his relief mixing with the paralyzing fear. He had what he came for. Now he just had to get out. As he turned to leave, a coldness washed over him. A cold so deep it seemed to freeze his very soul. He saw no monster, no terrifying figure. He saw nothing. But he felt a presence pass through him like smoke. It wasn't violent. It was methodical, deliberate. The spirits didn't want his life. They did not kill. They collect lessons. And the price for his lesson was steep. In that single, chilling moment, they took something from him. It wasn't his voice. He could still scream, though no sound came out. It wasn't his memory. He remembered his family, his hunger, his fear. What they took was his joy. His ability to feel warmth, to laugh, to find comfort in the sun or in the smile of his sisters. They hollowed him out, leaving an empty vessel that could walk and talk, but could no longer truly live. He stumbled out of the forest just as the first hint of dawn painted the sky in shades of gray. He was physically unharmed, carrying the bag of glowing mushrooms. As his feet touched the red earth of the village path, a sound returned. The slow, steady beat of a single drum. Then another, and another, until the familiar rhythm once again filled the air. The warning was over. The trespasser had returned. The elders were already waiting, their faces grim and knowing. They didn't need to ask where he had been. They saw it in his eyes, or rather, what was missing from them. The spark was gone. He was a shell. The forest behind him remained silent, its secrets locked away once more. He had opened a door that night, a door into the world of the spirits. But he learned a terrible truth. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. He sold the mushrooms. He fed his family. Their hunger was sated, but a new, deeper emptiness filled their home. Kale was there, but he was gone. He never laughed again. He never smiled. He simply existed, a ghost in his own life, a living reminder of a broken rule. The lesson was learned not just by him, but by the entire village, passed down through the generations with a renewed sense of terror and respect. It taught us all that respect is stronger than bravery. It taught us that some boundaries are drawn for a reason, and that some rules are older and more powerful than courage. That is why, even today, in my village, when the night is deep and the world is quiet, when the drums stop, we stay inside. Thank you for listening to our story. If you enjoy Tales from the Edge of the World, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Every story holds a lesson. We'll see you in the next one.